Whatever rocks your socks, whatever spins your top, whatever winds your watch, whatever flips your flop, whatever turns you on, whatever flies your flag, whatever bangs your gong, or whatever swings your bag. Do it often, but do it well, 'cause nobody knows and there's no way to tell. When the ride ends,
good morning. Welcome again to Turtle Beach. I hope you had a terrific week. I hope you had a terrific Christmas and you're looking forward to a terrific new year. I am at it's kind of the ranger station in the national park, the Taibung, Kolampi National Park. That's the ocean back there through the trees. This is a sala. They have meetings and things here. It's hard to do backwards. These are bungalows. They're about, I think, 700 baht a night. And they're really sweet, but there's nowhere to get food or water. You have to bring your own. And these are the colonnades of trees. And throughout the year, they will have a variety of events. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, they'll come and they'll camp. And they will fill, let's see if I can get us over there. They will fill these colonnades with tents, and they'll have 1,000 Boy Scouts or 1,000 Girl Scouts or 1,000 people dressed in white meditating. It's pretty incredible. And yeah, over here, these are the public restrooms. I don't know if you can see them. The typical Southeast Asian outdoor men's urinals. We're not supposed to be shy here. Men will drop trow and urinate wherever they are. So I'm gonna do this here. I brought some mosquito repellent in case the mosquitoes decide to feast on Steve. Give me 10 seconds here, all right? I'm gonna let the grips and the gaffers have the stage for 10 seconds. Is there enough light? The sun is coming up, so you should be able to see me. What's a nice view? Like that? Nah. Woo! Sorry. Didn't mean to make you nauseous. You know what? I'm gonna sit over there, put the colonnade behind me. I know this is all very unprofessional, but I really can't be bothered to edit. I don't like editing. There we go. Yeah, all right. Oh, look at that. Forced perspective. MC Escher. Mobius. The Mobius tree. All right. Let's get started. Welcome back to Turtle Beach. First things first. Yeah, my smile is not the glorious thing it used to be, is it? Yeah. Let's see, we get some sunlight on Steve's face. No, not really. Anyway, yeah, I visited the dentist. This tooth has been bugging me for years, decades, maybe. I think I broke the root of this tooth in the 90s chewing on a cigarette lighter. I'm very oral. And if I'm not smoking, I'm chewing on a cigarette lighter, and they're very hard. You shouldn't chew on them. And I think I broke a tooth way back in the 90s, but I hate dentists. I don't hate dentists, I fear dentists. So I never had it taken care of, and it would flare up. It'd be painful for a week, and then not painful for a month, and then painful for a week, and I went like this for decades. And when it would super erupt, it would come up out of the jaw, and when I chew, it would catch on my upper teeth, and that was really painful. So I had to skip Christmas dinner this year. I was invited to Tim's house for Christmas dinner. Very much looking forward to free Falang food. You know my opinion of free Falang food. It's great. I want it. But I had to decline the invitation at a moment's notice and leave him with an empty chair at his beautifully decorated dining table because I knew I couldn't eat anything. And so the next day, Boxing Day, I went and had it pulled out. And of course, it was like a 3-minute procedure. The thing was ready to jump out of the socket on its own. And the rest of my mouth is relatively healthy. I was born with almost perfect teeth, but they're very brittle. So I've had, you can see all my molars extracted. So I can only chew in the front of my mouth, which made this thing really problematic. Everybody's saying get an implant. I don't think I want an implant. I'm 66 years old. Who do I have to impress? Who do I have to be pretty for? But it makes my sibilants soft. It gives me a little tiny lisp when I speak. And now, I'm an influencer. I'm a YouTuber. So, or as they say here, YouTube. And I don't know. It's only been a couple days. But it happened on Boxing Day. It happened on December 26th. And last year on December 26th, I was in the hospital getting 5 stitches in my forehead. It's this one, that one. And happily, the scar just hides with all the other wrinkles. But yeah, last year, I moved into my new home on Turtle Beach on Christmas Day last year, 2022. And the next day fell off my bicycle, face planted, did the scorpion in the middle of the street. And I had to go to the hospital, get 5 stitches. So Boxing Day is pretty momentous for me. And it reminded me of what happened on this coast on Boxing Day in 2004. There was a tsunami. You may remember. So let me tell you a little story. Boxing Day 2004, I was sitting, it was Christmas Day in Iowa. My divorce was finalized January 30th, 2003. And I had been locked in my house for about a year with social anxiety disorder. I was renting a room downstairs to a guy named Josh Green, who was the women's soccer coach at the University of Iowa. I had received a free turkey dinner from the Lions Club because we were on welfare. We were on public assistance because Steve couldn't pay his bills. 40 years old, white, college-educated male in America, can't pay his bills. And so I was given a free dinner with all the fixings. Now, I was alone for all the holidays. My ex-wife had got the kids for every holiday, 14 holidays through the year. I never saw my kids on their birthdays, on my birthday, on Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July. Never saw my kids. So I was going to be alone on Christmas Day with this big, huge meal, food for 5-6 people. So I invited Josh to come up and eat with me. So the two of us are sitting there. We don't know each other very well. I'm just his landlord. He's a guy who lives in my basement. But we're sitting there eating a very good meal and watching the TV, and I forget what was on. And they broke in with a news alert. Tsunami in Southeast Asia. Thousands feared dead. And because Phuket had a lot of, cameras there, most people died in Indonesia. Most people were poor brown people who died in Indonesia where there weren't a lot of cameras around in 2004. So nobody really took notice of that. But on Phuket was wealthy white people dying and they had cameras. So that's what we saw Christmas Day in Iowa. We saw Phuket getting hammered, Patong Beach, where I had spent every Friday night for years. Kata Beach, where I worked in the boathouse. Come to find out, eventually I found out the boathouse was gutted. The boathouse, the first floor and basement were absolutely gutted. Nobody died, thank God, because they hired at the boathouse Chao Kok Island people. That was the deal when Mom 3 developed the Club Med, the first hotel of any size on Phuket. His promise to Kata Beach was that his hotel, the boathouse, would hire only people from Phuket. So they knew what was happening, and they got the hell off the beach, and they got their guests off the beach and up to the second floor. So nobody was injured, nobody died at the boathouse. But, that's what we were watching, with our turkey legs halfway to our mouths, frozen, sitting there, me and a guy I barely knew, watching this, watching the destruction and the loss of life on Phuket. Steve's first thought in that moment. And unfortunately, my thought in the days to come was, I should have been there. That's my book. I had always wanted to write the great expat novel. That had been the plan for years and years and years, to write the great expatriate novel on Phuket, about Phuket. Here's the biggest event to ever happen on Phuket, ever, in history. Boy, there's a lot of mosquitoes here. Biggest event to ever happen, Steve comes prepared. On Phuket, ever, in history, thousands, it would turn out almost 250,000 people died. What's Steve's first thought? It's all about Steve. I should have been there. You see that? Look at that. Me, right? How does this affect me? I should have been there. I never thought I should have been at Auschwitz. I never thought I should have been at Krakatoa. I should have been at Pompeii. I should have been, no, the Jonestown flood, no. But Phuket, Boxing Day, 2004, and my first thought is, that's my book. I should have been there. I could have written the book. Can you name a book about the tsunami? Can you name a movie? Okay, what is it, The Impossible? The Impossibility? There's some Spanish movie, but really it hasn't been covered. There is no significant book written, particularly a novel, written about the tsunami in 2004. That could have been me. That was my thought, right? Why? Is it simply Steve's narcissism, being an only child of a single parent? Is that what drives him to think this way, to make everything about Steve? I don't know. I think what it is that for 25 years in Iowa and then New Mexico, I was embarrassed about my life. Again, a college-educated white man in America who can't pay his bills, who the court takes his children away from him, who withdraws into a cubicle in the basement of a hospital. You know, there's not a lot to be proud of there. And I thought this book on the tsunami, I thought if I had been in the boathouse that morning, which I would have been. You work in a hotel on Phuket, you're at work on Christmas morning, day after Christmas, day after that, New Year's. High season, baby, you work 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. I would have been there. I would have been on the beach. Not a lot to be proud of in Iowa. And so in my mind, I wanted to be other places, particularly Thailand, particularly the Andaman coast of Thailand. Someone asked me a week ago, Steve, you've listed all the reasons somebody should not live in Thailand. Why do you live there? Tell us, why do you live there? Well, because I'm not embarrassed. I know what people think about old white guys who live in Thailand. And that's not me. You know, I was in the writer's workshop, the Iowa Writer's Workshop, and the other students wouldn't read my stories because they saw an old white guy who wrote about Thailand, and they thought it was all going to be self-aggrandizing Bargirl stories. They refused to read my stories. That's the worst insult one writing student can make to another writing student. If you read the story, you can say anything you want. You can say, this sucks. You shouldn't be trying to write. You should go work in a cubicle. You can say that. And the guy says, thank you. I would have said thank you, because that's what you're paying for in graduate school in a writing program. You're paying for the opinions of the other students. It's a workshop. That's how it works. They would not read my stories. That's the worst insult. So I know what people think about old white guys who live in Thailand. I'm not embarrassed by that, because that's not me. I don't monger. I haven't been in a bar. Christ, I've been back in Thailand 18 months. I think I may have been in a bar 4 or 5 times in 18 months. There aren't any bars here. This is Turtle Beach. There's no bars, no go-go's, no discos. That doesn't exist here. That kind of farang kit guy, that monger, that fat old guy on a bar stool, he doesn't exist here or close to here. You know, 45 minutes away, an hour away in Phuket, you can find that sad son of a bitch. He's not here, so I'm not embarrassed of this life. I love this life. I'm proud of this life. I'm proud of what I'm doing here. even if this is all I'm doing, even if making paper mache turtle shells is all I'm doing. I'm proud of that. I like that. I show it off, right? Every Friday and every Sunday, I'm on YouTube bragging about my life, bragging about how much I love this life. After 25 years in the cubicle, after 25 years of being ashamed of who I was, that's what I love. And it could have been anywhere. It could have been Costa Rica. If I had dreamed for 25 years of going back to Costa Rica, if I had promised myself at an airport in 1997 that someday I will come back to this place, it could have been anywhere. It could have been Nepal, Costa Rica, Moscow, New York, anywhere. Though I could not afford to live in any of those places now. Happily, I can afford to live here on my Social Security. Listen, let me tell you a little story, all right? And I may have told this story before. I don't know. Look, there are people watching this who've never read any of my books, who've never seen my videos. This story will be new to them. There are people watching this who read my column in The Nation back in 1989. You know, they'll have heard, perhaps, this story. After 250 newspaper columns, 125 YouTube videos, and 5 books, I don't remember what stories I've told. So bear with me if you've heard this before. You know, a few weeks ago, I told a story about going to an auction of 7 virginities back in the 90s when I was writing a column and needed ideas for a column. And somebody wrote in and said, why would you tell that story again? You've already told that story. Why would you go to that auction and why would you tell the story twice? Well, I went to that auction because I was a newspaper columnist and every week I needed an idea for a column. And because I was curious, aren't you? Given the opportunity, wouldn't you go and watch an auction of 7 virginities in a bar on Patong Beach? Yeah, you would. I don't care who you are. That's interesting, all right? Why tell the story more than once? Because I don't remember having told it before. I'm sorry. So if I've told the story of Robert Dean Frisbie before, I apologize. But here's the story of Robert Dean Frisbie. 1914, Robert Dean Frisbie, 17 years old. He volunteers for the Army. He wants to go fight in the Great War. He goes to boot camp. In boot camp, he's, put in a barracks with 100 other soldiers. He gets TB. Disease goes around a lot in armies. I happen to be working in a morgue at an Army hospital on an Army base in Texas during COVID. Disease goes around. You put a bunch of teenagers in a barracks together and they're going to be sharing beds. That's, now it's a co-ed army. Back then they shared the dining hall, they shared the latrine, they shared their bedroom. They weren't having sex, I don't think. But soldiers are always crammed into close quarters. He got TB. He was in an Army hospital for a year. He was in a civilian hospital for a year. He was discharged from the Army, went back to Michigan, and the doctors told him, look, the TB is going to kill you in a few years, particularly in these Midwestern winters. Don't hang around here. Go someplace warm. We'll continue to send you your Army pension. You'll have a few years someplace warm. So leave Michigan, go someplace warm. He went to Tahiti, and he got on a boat in Tahiti. He went to the Cook Islands. He got on a boat in the Cook Islands. He went to a place called Puka Puka, the island farthest out in the Pacific Ocean, the last stop, the Taiwan. He settled in there. He married a 16-year-old girl. He had 6 children with that 16-year-old girl. He spent 40 years in the islands as a trader. He bought a boat. He went island to island with a hold full of thimbles and sewing needles and fountain pens and pipe tobacco, things that were light, compact, you could buy in bulk, sell individually. And he supported his 6 kids and his wife going around 6 months out of the year when it wasn't monsooning, buying and selling in the islands. And then 6 months a year, he was on the island of Puka Puka with his wife, making more babies. He had a fantastic life, and he wrote a bunch of articles about it for newspapers and magazines back in the States, and he wrote some books, one of which was called The Book of Puka Puka, which was on my mother's shelves. My mother had an interest in the Pacific Islands. She lived in the Pacific. We lived in the Pacific for a few years on Guam. This book was always on her shelves. I was intrigued by the title. I read it a couple times, and Robert Dean Frisbie is kind of my patron saint now. When asked why he did what he did, he said 2 reasons. First, I like solitude. I like being alone. So I went someplace where I could be alone. Second, I thought I was going to die, and I wanted to be in a nice place before I died. And third, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. Every young man in Michigan went to the Great War and either died heroically or came back with medals on his chest. I spent 2 years in a hospital coughing up my lungs, and that was it. And they told me, you're going to die, and this is all you're going to do in your life is lay in a hospital bed. That's it. You're not going to be a hero. You're not going to get any medals. I was ashamed, he said. I was embarrassed. So he wanted to be on Puka Puka. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. And I wanted to be in Thailand, even with a tsunami, maybe especially with a tsunami. I was a young man then, in my 40s. Now I don't want any tsunamis. And no tsunamis have ever hit this beach. No tsunamis ever will. It's too deep here. Tsunamis only exist in shallow water. Said this before. I'm sorry if you're hearing it again. No, there's never going to be a tsunami here. And that's fine with me. I don't need any more than this, right? Solitude. Quiet. Place where you can hear yourself think. Right? What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. I'm not embarrassed of this guy. Not even with a hole in his face. I don't think I'm going to get an implant. I'm 66. Who do I have to be pretty for? You? Are you going to unsubscribe because I got a hole in my face now? What if I just smile? My upper teeth. How about that? Anyway, that's all I had. I want to share with you. I'm reading Jasmine Nights by S.B. Somtao. It's a lovely book. I had read this when it was serialized in the Bangkok Post back in the 90s. I haven't read it since, and it's quite lovely. I remembered it as being very well written. Somtao writes beautifully. He's very lyrical in several languages. And this is very reminiscent of C. Pandine, Four Rains, if you know Kukrit Pramod. He was once prime minister of this country, and he was an accomplished author back in the day, and he was raised in the royal palace. He was raised in the harem back in the 1800s, Kukrit was, and he wrote a book, Si Pandine, about being in the harem for 4 reigns of the Rama dynasty. And it's a little boy running around with all these women, a world full of women. And that's what Somtao has written about in Jasmine Nights. He's from a family with royal connections, and a lot of money, and that's how he was raised, a little boy in a house full of wealthy women. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book, and I recommend it. If you're a reader, if you're one of the 3 people who still read. Somebody said, Steve, you should close with a joke. So here's a joke. The past, the present, and the future walk into a bar. It was tense. Gotta love language. All right, that's it. That's it for this week. 22 minutes, that's enough. Thank you, as always, for your attention. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. This is the most important time of my week, without a doubt, even notwithstanding this. And I'm very, very grateful to you for coming along. I love you all. I love you very, very much. And I hope you have a great week. Happy, happy New Year. And I'll see you next Friday. See you Sunday on Grumpy Old Men. I am reminded I should be pimping Grumpy Old Men on Tim Newton Today's channel. Grumpy Old Men on Sunday, me and Tim. So I hope you'll join us. Thank you. Goodbye.
Whatever shaves your sheep, whatever bakes your lamb, whatever digs your peat, whatever smokes your ham, whatever blows your nose, whatever chews your bone, whatever squirts your hose, whatever sings your song, do it often but do it well. Nobody knows and there's no way to tell. When you're riding, shoot up, shoot down to that dando.